Did I say it's unbelievable, incredible, amazing, and it's going to change your life forever? I'm talking about the iPhone 10. Oh, wrong script, excuse me. Actually, I'm talking about the Spectrum. The Spectrum is something very innovative and new when it relates to individual giving. You know, the CF Foundation's always been at the forefront of innovation and medical care and research, but the Spectrum is going to take us to the forefront of innovation and fundraising. And we have a very compelling product, saving lives. But just like computers or smartphones or tablets, it's not a one-size-fits-all situation. So we want our supporters to give them an opportunity to have a spectrum of opportunities to help our cause. You know, there are walks, galas, extreme hikes, all those kinds of things that people can get involved in. But today we're going to talk about something special. It's individual giving. And individual giving is the most efficient way for people to give to cystic fibrosis cause and to promote the cure. It's important because it's a very needed revenue stream. The bottom line is events alone are not going to get us enough money to fund the science that they were talking about earlier today. You can only imagine how expensive it is, and we're not going to be able to do it by special events alone. And frankly, not everybody wants to participate in special events. Some people would just prefer to give us their money and not walk or dance or eat or those things. Although, who doesn't want to eat? And let me take that back. Everybody wants to eat, but they might not want to walk. Gifts can be specifically targeted to a certain area. As I mentioned earlier, I'm very involved with nonsense mutations because of my daughter Stacy, and there's a whole initiative to raise money specifically for nonsense mutations, and there will be for transplantation, and over time there will be more areas where we're going to target specific gifts, and I think this is a great opportunity to engage people who have a specific interest because everyone has their priorities in this fight. And probably most important, individual gifts are 100% tax deductible. And that's because the 100% of the money goes directly to research. So that's really important for everybody these days. And even within individual giving, there's a whole spectrum of opportunities. There's annual fund, which is gifts from $1 to $10,000. It's really applicable often to people who go to events but want to give more beyond just the event. Then there's major gifts, which are gifts over $10,000. They can either be given one-year donation or a multi-year pledge, and those usually require a little more work, a little more stewardship, and a little more coordination with your individual giving officers and executive directors. And then there's something that I'm really excited about because, you know, to many of us, it's a very new area, and it's planned giving, which is an area that I think has tremendous growth potential because it's something I don't think we've given much thought to in the past, but it's a great opportunity, and I can just say that I didn't think much about planned giving until last year when a friend of our family, who we didn't even know did this, passed away and left $500,000 to CF in their will. And it just shows the power of planned giving, which obviously shouldn't be in addition to whatever else people do. You know, as supporters go through the spectrum of their lives, their situations change, and what they wanted to do last year, they don't necessarily want to do next year. So we want to give them a spectrum of opportunity to give based upon where they are in their lives, whether they, you know, when their kids were young, it's Great Strides. Later on, it might be individual giving, major gifts, etc. And the spectrum also applies to the process of cultivating a prospect. You know, it starts with identifying people who are sensitive to our cause, then finding out how they'd like to, most like to provide their support. Once they provide it, it is critical to thank them, communicate with them regularly, and make sure that we're meeting their ever-evolving needs and desires. But that's just an overview. Now I would like to introduce Erin Shanahan, who is going to talk about how the spectrum relates to annual giving. Erin, take it away.
Thank you, Paul. Good afternoon. Thank you all so much for joining us today. My name is Erin Shanahan, and I am a volunteer from the Greater Illinois chapter. I am the Chicago Annual Fund Chair, the National Co-Chair of Annual Fund, along with Peter Hodge, and I'm on the Leadership Council for Individual Giving. My husband, Joel, and I have two kids, Aiden, who's 6.5 and in the first grade and has CF, and Isabel, who is 19 months old and a carrier. Aiden has 2 nonsense mutations, so we're in that last 5% that you keep hearing about. A few minutes ago, you heard Paul explain what the spectrum is, and now I want to tell you about how some of us as volunteers incorporate this idea into our fundraising efforts and how we engage with our network to reach our fundraising goals. I'm going to start by talking very briefly about the work I do with Annual Fund, and then I'm going to introduce you to a few other volunteers who are going to tell you about their areas of expertise. My family started out raising money through Great Strides, like most of us in the room did. But as Aiden's gotten older and plays way too many sports on the weekends, we have found that it doesn't necessarily fit our family's life anymore. And so I went to my chapter and said, what else can we do? How can we get involved? And they suggested Annual Fund, especially since the money raised from Annual Fund goes to the research and the drug development, just like the money from Great Strides. So the great thing about raising money for Annual Fund is that you can kind of do whatever you want with it. You can make it your own. The key is that you need to know your donors and your potential donors. In our case, a lot of our friends and family are spread out across the country. I grew up in Chicago, I went to school in Ohio, my husband's from San Diego. So our network is really spread all across the country, so events don't really work for our family. Now, if they work for yours, you can always do an Annual Fund event or a cultivation event to teach people more about CF and the Annual Fund. But instead, what we do is a big email writing campaign, and we raise a fair amount of money that way. The great thing is, the tools that the foundation has developed in the last couple of years makes it really easy to make your own email writing campaign. They have a system similar to what you might be familiar to with Great Strides, where you can send emails, track your donors, thank your donors. And it's important to think about who you're going to include in this campaign. Unlike Great Strides, where you're all coming to one place for a walk, you're trying to reach out to the biggest network possible. So a great way to think of it is start with the easy people, the low-hanging fruit, your extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins. Move on to your high school or college friends that you keep in touch with, maybe some work colleagues, and then think about how you can branch that out a little bit. Does your child play on a sports team? Maybe they're in a dance club. You can start thinking about new groups that you could reach out to. And also you could do a Facebook campaign and get the word out that way. Social media is a great way to educate people about why they should care about CF and CF research in the first place. And that does open the door later to ask for a donation. Honestly, this is true for any kind of campaign you do for any type of fundraising. Make sure you're not always going to your friends and family with your hand out. Make sure you are always taking time to educate them. This could be showing them how many pills your kid has to take before they can eat a meal, or talking about the great new developments that are coming down the pipeline that could make a difference for so many people. Another thing my family does in Chicago is we offer a local match, and then we offer a smaller match just for our own friends and family during our email campaign. Local matches are a great tool to really leverage more donations and get people more excited about donating to the foundation. And personally, we find that offering a smaller match to our friends and family helps motivate them. In 2017, there were over 24 local matches offered across the country, and those generated $430,000. So this is definitely something we'd like to keep growing in more and more chapters. On the screen, you'll see a list of all the other tools the foundation has available to help you be successful with your own Annual Fund campaign. We have a lot of sample letters that we can give you, along with sample thank you letters to send at the end of any campaign you do, since it's always important to follow up with a thank you. The foundation sends a lot of cultivation emails and mailings to help your donors become better educated on CF and what's happening in the CF Foundation world. And a lot of chapters are still looking for annual fund chairs and co-chairs. So if you're interested in learning more, please come find me later today or reach out to your EDs when you get home. And also, Peter Hodge and I are always available to help you come up with new ideas on how to harness your network to raise more money for the annual fund. So I'm going to move on and introduce Leah and Shannon Buckley, two volunteers from the Charlotte chapter, who are going to talk about their work with major gifts.
Too tall to hide behind this thing. All right, I have to do a little reading here, but our story begins when we found out that our grandson Anderson had CF in July of 2010. At that very moment, we knew we needed to learn everything we could about the disease. That led us to the CFF, and what a wealth of information and support they gave us. We discovered that they have a very solid reputation as one of the best nonprofit organizations where dollars are used wisely, with over 84% being spent on programs and less than 16% going to overhead. We came to understand that research is the key to a cure and that research comes at a high cost. We discovered that the foundation has been the driving force behind the research and has led to innovative therapies and groundbreaking drug development. We're fortunate that research had begun years ago, that before our first grandchild was born, research had led to the development of Kalydeco. This is a miracle drug that our two CF grandchildren take daily. Just because our grandchildren have the benefit of Kalydeco, we never consider reducing our efforts and letting others take on the heavy lifting. Much like the foundation itself, we won't stop until drugs are available that will help with all with CF and ultimately a cure is found. What better gift could we give our grandchildren than the chance for a healthier, longer life and a life full of opportunity? For us, the spectrum consists of participating in fundraising in great strides and Cycle for Life, along with promoting awareness and education by speaking to civic groups, churches, and individuals. For the past 2 years, we have also served on the Charlotte Chapter's Brewers Ball Committee. These are wonderful team events that we enjoy and will continue to do. However, from the beginning, we desired to do more, to have a more direct and personal connection to finding a cure. We decided that we could reprioritize our finances and become CFF major gift givers.
We then looked into ways to get the biggest bang for our major gift. We found out that first year that the Boomer Esiason Foundation was matching major gifts to the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, so we jumped at the chance to have our dollars doubled. I contacted the foundation and they put me in touch with just the right person. We also discovered that in many cases, major gifts can be spread out over multiple years and those gifts can be designated towards specific causes. Several years ago, we put our dollars into a matching grant for nonsense mutations. We didn't personally know anyone at that time with a nonsense mutation, but felt that if we could help someone with a nonsense mutation and our dollars doubled, then that's what we were going to do. In 2018, we're trying something new for the two of us, as we, the two of us, are providing the funds for the Charlotte Chapter's annual gift campaign. This way, once again, our dollars are being doubled and will provide another way for friends, associates, and family members to consider giving. Not long ago, we would have never imagined that we would be the folks saying that we, two middle-class working folks, would be doing a match for our local chapter, but here we are. We stepped out in faith that we could manage to donate $10,000 that first year in 2011 and have been giving major gifts ever since. Several times we've made the donation over 2 years instead of 1. We sincerely hope that many of you chose to attend today's breakout session because you are considering the major gift program. If you have that desire to personally make a difference and are willing to dig deep and make the financial sacrifices necessary, we believe that you will enjoy the same sense of deep satisfaction that we have in knowing that you are indeed doing all that you can to find a cure for this cruel disease. Make sure you check out the many ways the foundation can help you become a major gift giver. Begin with the information being displayed on the screen and then start asking yourselves questions. Both your local chapter and the national office are there to help. So if you came in today thinking, there's no way I can make a major gift, then we hope we have at least motivated you to give it some thought. Know that someone's child is out there waiting for that cure, and you have the opportunity to make it happen. Thank you.
Before we move into our breakout groups, we are going to hear from Tom Foster, a volunteer from our Indiana chapter, who's going to talk about legacy giving.
First of all, I'm going to say that she did say I'm from Indiana, and I happen to be a Purdue guy, so I'm saying boil her up for our win today. Some of you know I don't have a direct connection to CF. And my wife did buy me at an event, though, so that was early on. I've chaired the annual fund in my chapter for many years and believe in the importance of non-event giving. I also believe in the importance of the major gifts to the foundation. However, I think it's also important to consider leaving a legacy. My wife and I have included the foundation, in our estate plans. I know the personal satisfaction of knowing that you're going to benefit others. Most of us make plans for our estates, and all of us should, by the virtue of being together at this conference and share this passion for the cause. We hope at the very least that you have made or will consider a planned gift to the foundation and urge and educate others to do so as well. As a financial advisor, I know many people that have given to charities on a regular basis, but the thing is that often they're worried about their retirement as well. So they're worried about making sure their money lasts through their retirement. I've worked together with many of the clients and with their attorneys to help them establish that legacy for them. And approaching someone about a legacy gift may seem intimidating, but it really doesn't have to be. The foundation's created so many tools that you can use, and also you have the individual giving officers to work with. So make sure you reach out to Tricia at the legacy table for the brochures. You also see thank you written as a tool on every slide, each that we've gone through. It's because thanking people is one of the biggest and most important things you can do. You're not all, some people are not comfortable with the ask. It can be challenging, but if you can always be part of a thanks. Imagine the power of a thank you from a family member who is directly being affected by the donation. It makes a big difference. And again, stop by and see Tricia at the legacy giving table. Erin?
So up on the screen, you're going to see the donor relationship wheel that you saw earlier. As we start work in our breakout groups, please remember that we are trying to think more meaningfully about how we can evolve along the spectrum and how we can help identify, cultivate, and educate others to help them evolve around the spectrum as well. So next, you're going to see our symbolic wheel of life. This helps identify just some of the possible networks in most of our lives. Hopefully, you can all identify some people within at least one of these groups that we can start to think about how to strategically engage with our fundraising efforts. So I'm going to ask one person from each table to volunteer to come up and spin the wheel, because you're going to get assigned a group to discuss here in a minute.
Like that?
Yes. Does anyone like to come up, or otherwise?
Start this table. So Tom, why don't you come up and spin the wheel?
Just push the middle. And you,
So this table, that is your topic, religious group.
okay, who's next?
Okay, now table two. You guys want to come up? Brian, spin the wheel. Gentle.
Social media.
Social media.
Can I just take the microphone for just 1 minute?
We'll go to this table.
Okay. Hey, hang on just a moment, everybody. Sorry. Peter Hodge, hey, how's everybody today? How's everybody today? Much better. Well, look, you guys are in for a real treat tonight because we have absolute legend here with us today who has raised individually more money than anybody else in this fight for cystic fibrosis. And I would love to have Joe O'Donnell, who's sitting right there, just talk about a few words of how every single person in this room has the power and the capability to raise huge amounts of money. Joe, thank you for being here with us.
Thank you so much. I came in here hoping there'd be some sandwiches in here, and all of a sudden I'm standing here. I've been here many, Gina, I particularly want to thank Gina for taking me upstairs. I haven't checked into my room yet, so this is a disaster, right? No, it's not a disaster. It's really not. This is so great to see. I've been doing this for 42 years. So my son was born in 1974, and he died in 1986. And I never heard the word cystic fibrosis when I got started, participating in trying to find a cure. So when he was 12, we were just starting to get, a group together in Massachusetts. And there was no organization across the country, and Michael was talking about national and us and all of the things that you're hearing about being one unit. At Harvard, we call it one Harvard, 12 schools. In here, it's, one CF, all not individual chapters competing with each other, like you're going to find so many other charities are doing, that are still doing today. So that's a very big thing. And it all comes back to, and it sounds trite, but it isn't. It all comes down to you, me, her, him. I mean, with leadership, and that's another thing that has really changed the metric here. We have leadership in this organization that's unparalleled. I mean, the transition from Bob Bell, who was Babe Ruth, he's the one who basically sat through that whole thing and just powered his way through it with all of us volunteers tagging along and trying to raise money. The transition to Prescott has been spectacular. That group, there's a whole new group. And as you all know, we're on a frontier that we've never been at before, and we're going to be there. We're going to get it done. That's why I'm involved. I'm involved for, I couldn't tell you in one word. It isn't just legacy, and it isn't anything else, except it's good. And what we're doing is going to it makes a difference to so many kids and so many people, so many families. And they're not just individual cases. This is a multiplier. So if you have a child with CF, it affects their friends, your relatives. Look, we know the story. So we're there, right at the cusp. And I think at the end of the day, what we need to do is this final push to take care of everybody else. And then there's no doubt in my mind we'll take all the other diseases. This gene editing is a different, I don't understand it. I don't try to understand all this stuff. I'm not a scientist. So when we went out to raise money on milestones, our goal was $150 million. Bob Bell said, can you do that? Can you go out and do that? And he and that rat brought in a mother, Amy Berry, a mother of a CF kid. And she made a very passionate appeal. And I said, all right, I'll do that. It wasn't 6 months later, then he changed the goal from 150 to 175. And then it was 175, right, Gina? Right. Then it was 175, then it was 200. And we finally, nailed it. And we nailed it a couple of years early. And then Bob was back on the plane and into my office saying, he was doing this, but he didn't say it. I was lying. Yeah, it takes more than 200 million. We need another campaign. So the day one ended, Milestones 1, we very creatively created Milestones 2. Unprecedented. The next day, And so we raised another $150 million, put it all onto Vertex. Remember, I had no intention of speaking here, so I could, if I'm going too long, hey, Paul, how are you? And I see all these unbelievable faces that are so committed to this thing. It's so different. It's so great to see. So once we got that partnership going with Vertex, the rest of it you all know. And we're not done with it yet, but we will be, for sure we will be. And it all begins, and notice I said we, and it is a collective, it's a pyramid, and the participation at the people who do the walks, who do all sorts of things, it doesn't work without those people. And so it isn't this commitment of time, resources, energy, spreading the word. So it's a phenomenal association you're all involved in. It's great to see you all coming here. I've been to a bunch of those North American treaties, the 5,000 people, and I remember everybody scoffing. I remember I made a presentation when we started Milestones, when we first did them, and the cynicism was unbelievable. Not from within our group. Our group was hopeful and apprehensive, but outside there was nothing but cynicism. Like, you're not going to raise that kind of money on this for orphan charity. And everybody pitched in, and we made some great progress, and we had heroes like Bob Bell and Rich Mattingly and a whole group of people who pitched in together and did that. And that's what we're doing here and what you're all doing. You're all so much more sophisticated. You know, I see things like that, and we didn't have computers, and we didn't have any of that stuff. So God bless you all. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. And to keep up the motivation, we're going to help give you some great tools here so you can go home and keep fundraising so we can keep getting closer to our cure. In the interest of time, I'm just going to go ahead and assign the rest of the tables. So how about this group right here with Paul? You do take grandparents. Right behind, why don't you do friends? The middle table, maybe child sports team. And then colleagues at work over here. And the back table, how about extended family? And then if you are listening in from home, why don't you think about a social group? And there's a way to text in so that you can participate as well. So remember, what I want you to do for about the next 10 minutes or so, I'd like you to talk about how you can engage your assigned network more strategically with the CF Foundation and how that relationship can evolve along the spectrum. Make sure to share some ideas from your own personal experiences along with brainstorming new ideas. You're going to have a facilitator from the foundation help you out with this, but make sure you assign one person as secretary to take notes on the big paper you're going to find so that we can post it later online for everyone to see and share ideas. And then assign one person to speak for the group if you're lucky enough to get called on later to share some ideas. So we're watching the religious group breakout session to hear what they're doing, and we want to know if they've given any thought yet on how specific ideas on how to engage this network for people at home who are listening in. But we'll listen in for a minute so that we can get some ideas.
Basically, we're supposed to be thinking about how to engage them in individual gifts. So we can talk about different ways to engage those groups. And the things that I think resonate a lot with people, especially if they're new to individual giving, are a nice time to bring this up might be end of year, since that giving that type of gift is something that folks have on their minds at the end of the year. Giving Tuesday, we all know, is a good thing. That's gaining more and more momentum across the country, not just with our foundation, but in others. And we are doing a really good job with the help of so many of our lead volunteers. So that could be a good thing to talk it up during that. But I think the most important thing with any network is to tell your story and to tell why you're engaged and to do things like what Aaron talked about and educate the group and find a proper forum with your group, whatever it may be, in this instance, a religious group. So does anyone have ideas about the best way to sort of to get in front of that group?
Now we're coming over to the table about colleagues at work. We're listening in for people online.
I would start out in that way and try and get them involved a step at a time. So I think that's
So far they have ideas like having a work event with Jeans Day where you can buy in. We're talking to people online to make sure that everyone's included. And also inviting people to join a Great Strides team for your office. Both really good ideas on how to engage.
on to, like, you know, our veterinarian, our dog sitter who also has a partner who has a horse raising business, and we actually have them sponsor. We have sponsors on the back of our Great Strides shirts, but again, we've done it on a one-on-one personal basis. We have a bit of a handicap because our grandson lives in Atlanta and we live in Louisville, and he has met a couple of these people, but he doesn't, you know, they do not really know him. So we took a big picture of him and told his story and talked about it. Dennis, that was interesting, he found that his sister had CF, and she didn't find out until she was 43. But he walks on a team with his brother now in memory of her, and he contributes to our effort too. So it's just a matter of building on those relationships in my way.
Now we're coming up on the social group table, the wine club, the book club. So far they've come up with the idea of having a wine party at a local winery to engage more of your network.
And just getting the word out more. And we serve free. There's no ticket to come. There's no food to buy. There's some other things we have to pay $25 to come to work in my neighborhood. Yeah, so I was coming here just to ask for more help with that, and I don't want to take up all the time, with just getting the word out. Sorry.
It's also an idea for a cultivation event if you want to teach more people about CF so that you can solicit them for a donation later down the line.
And it's family oriented, and we have grandchildren passing trays of food around, like little bites. And it's like a 3-hour, close to 100. And for Port Angeles, that's pretty good.
Oh, I love Port Angeles.
Yeah.
Oh, it's such a cool place. Oh my goodness.
Now we're going to move on to see how you can engage your extended family. So far they've come up with a matching gift campaign for your family members, where you can offer a smaller match and then get your family members to come and make it happen so you double your money.
For one thing, the band leader. Hi. The band leader is downtown, but he still has his groupies. So when he comes back to this event, they all come but the funding has gone. I mean, the amount we've been able to raise has stabilized. It went down a couple of thousand for the last year, but then it stabilized, or 2 years ago, and then it stabilized. And the main reason I'm here is just try to find out, if other people are having the same issues and what they're doing to kickstart, reinvigorate their group. They're a small family, a small group, and everyone in the family participates. They're the group. We don't have a great big organization. There's primarily 5 or 6 women in the organization, and then those of us, and I'll include myself, on the outside a little bit, on the periphery. We do, but we don't do as much as they do. And that'll hopefully change a little bit now that I've retired, but people have a life, and we have to acknowledge that they do the best they can, I guess.
So we're going to come over to the group talking about how to engage your friends, and we'll listen in there. So far they have, seems to be a theme, they have personal matches to your friend's donation, and they have listed some challenges, which I think is really great. So donor fatigue and doing a straight ask with no party could be daunting. So how to get around and do that.
Donation at the end of the year, I'm going to put it in a box. I'd like all of my family members who are able to help match.
What you've done so well is also these cultivation events, different kinds, about targeting your message for who's there in the room.
We've done multiple traditional cultivation events. Cultivation events we also call it a friend raiser in California. You invite friends to an event at your home or at a place, and you have some speakers who talk about their experience, so they can actually come and learn about what people go through. Well, yeah, they'd get an email from us saying we're doing an event, give some money, and whatever we put in the email is all they hear. But when they come to an event, they get some hors d'oeuvres, they get some drinks, they get to listen to a child talk about his experience dealing with the disease. My oldest son has done that. And you don't do an ask at the party. Typically, you invite people. It's a 2 or 3 hour event. Takes some coordination, educational, and then you make sure you ask, follow up. Thank you for arriving, for attending. I'm committing this much this year. Please join me. And that's what we do.
We're moving over to our grandparents group to hear what ideas they have. So far it looks like they have ideas to get a group of grandparents together to share their experiences with their grandchildren. And they also noted that it's important to be a voice for their children who are busy raising their own children and help their family that way. So we're going to listen to what Paul is saying.
It isn't a quote fundraiser per se, like Grace, because a lot of them aren't that interested in going out and asking people for money. But if they had another avenue to help and contribute, they'd be good at that. Yeah.
They also talked about creating an event just for grandparents and to bring new grandparents into the fold and use their skills to help us raise money. So the last table is over here, and it's the social media group. And some ideas they've come up with is to get online and share stories and really brand your message. This is for everyone at home. Sorry. And then also to do outreach. You can do outreach this way for Great Strides. Also think about starting your own annual fund page using the tools that the foundation has given us.
For other, they're young people, like late teenage, 20s or what have you. And it's kind of a leadership opportunity for them to go out and raise funds for the community. And they have a contest, and I don't know exactly the premise behind the Finest program, but it's pretty effective. And they've made a lot of money for the chapter by doing that.
We have a university in our town, and I think that they are always looking for opportunities to get involved in a worthy cause like that. So it's just a matter of organizing and recruiting.
And one important idea is people are talking about Finest event, which is when young professionals come together and fundraise for the foundation. It's a great way to get people invested in the CF Foundation who maybe aren't part of it through a child or a friend. And then you can use that to branch them out into these other areas, get them to start their own Great Strides team, send them on a hike to raise money that way, or have them start an annual fund or a major gift campaign. It's a way to really start getting more people involved for longer.
So Giving Tuesday is a national event. It's kind of like Black Friday, then Giving Tuesday. It's not even, it's right after Thanksgiving. Yeah, it's right after Thanksgiving. And it's like this embedded cultural phenomenon that on Tuesday after the following Thanksgiving, it's a day to give back. Like we're so focused on the shopping and the material thing, exactly. Like this is the time to give back. So we're trying to create a stronger presence through our annual fund because a lot of Giving Tuesday gifts are and gifts. Like people that make gifts through Giving Tuesday are oftentimes giving an annual fund gift on top of that towards the end of the year. That's what statistics show. So by
social media blast right around Thanksgiving before you exactly.
Social media, helping the chapter spread that awareness. Yeah. And they say calendar. And they say that 40% of annual giving occurs in December, the month of December. So it's like that's the month that people give. So if we're not asking, we're missing an opportunity.
Yeah, I think we're about right. Okay, I hope you guys had some really good discussions, and I hope they're still going, but we're going to take the last 10 minutes or so to come back together and share some of these ideas, because as I was going around, I saw a lot of overlap between the groups, which I think is great, and we can kind of hear some ideas that you can take home at the end of the day, so I will go around with the microphone. And here are some of the questions we're going to talk about. We really want to talk about how to engage this network, not only with the CF Foundation, but specifically to individual giving, and how you can educate your network to better understand CF and the foundation and bring them in over time. And then I'm going to ask for some, if anyone has any good personal stories or challenges to share, we would love to hear that. So if this works, yep. So let's start with the grandparents over here. Who was elected speaker? Here we go.
It's good penmanship here. You know, it's kind of interesting. So I'm the ED in the Minnesota chapter, and we tried to get a grandparents group off the ground and just get them engaged and message them and hopefully get to a point where they would consider a legacy gift or a major gift. And we kind of did it. We sent out letters and had people get back to us if they want to be a part of a group, and we didn't get one single person to come back to us, about 400 people we sent it to. And so what Gia had shared with the group was that they did a breakfast at a local private club, and they had it moderated by two couples that were grandparents, and they worked with their care centers to get an invite out, and 60 people showed up. And with that, they got some people that contribute to annual fund. They got some volunteers out of it. They got some legacy gifts out of it. So, and I kind of joined the group a little bit late, but from my experience running the chapter, and if anybody else there wants to spearhead a fundraising effort or a legacy giving effort in their community as a volunteer, this idea of creating an event, because, you know, we do it for our other donors. You know, we create walks and climbs and brewers balls. The same idea applies here, is create an event. And a breakfast is great because grandparents get up early. And so I know this is something that I want to bring back to my chapter and get it going. And I've got two great CF grandparents that can spearhead it for us. So I don't know if there's anything else we want to point out on. That was my biggest takeaway, which was I'm really glad I came in because it's great. So.
And I think it is important to remember that an event doesn't always have to be about fundraising. It can be a cultivation event, an event where we educate people about what CF is, about what the CF Foundation does, and we can follow up later with an ask. You don't have to have one of these and always ask for money. So I think it's something really important to take away. So thank you. We're going to come over here to the religious groups and find out what they came. So I have a question about how can you evolve this relationship with your local religious group over time?
Okay, my name is Kim Gailey. I'm from the Delaware Valley chapter. We were talking, this was probably one of the hardest groups, I would have to say. Because a religious group unto itself is already looking for charities to itself, right? So how do you go to a church and then, or a community and ask them for money for your charity? So we were saying a lot of it would be introducing yourself, having maybe coffees after their meeting, having literature, having a presentation if they would allow it, so that there would be some type of connection for that group to our cause. And if you could just get some people, but even just asking simply for prayers from that group for the patients with CF, and then educate them about CF might give them the inkling to then be more involved. And then you could ask for donations or a little mini event, or then into individual giving.
Thank you. So I think what we're seeing is that it's important to build the relationship and not just go up to random strangers and ask them for a donation. You really have to develop these relationships over time and kind of use your story, because every one of us in the room has our story. And we can use that to really leverage some volunteers and donors later on. So we're going to come over here and talk about colleagues at work. And I want to know how you've come up with ideas to engage this group with the CF Foundation. Who was elected?
Well, I'm retired, so it's you take it all with a grain of salt. No, actually, I think it works with any group. You really have to get to know people. And, you know, I like all the ideas I've heard so far, but when you're working with people, you have the opportunity to go to lunch with them, and, you know, it can't be one-sided. I mean, they have families, they have activities, they have things going on, and the more you can become involved with them, the more they are interested in what you're doing and getting involved with you. I made the point here that there was a young man that is probably 20s and starting out, and I thought he was an especially capable person, and I worked with him on, I was in marketing, he was in sales, he was assigned to work with me on a new product thing, and I helped him to do the marketing side of it, and he did the sales side very well, and eventually I decided to bring him into the marketing group, and he's been for great strides. I'm speaking of here, not annual giving. I've never asked for annual giving, but he has been one of our most consistent, strongest donors, and it's because he knew me, respects me, knows that I looked out for him when he needed someone to help him out. So I think that's a big part of anything you're doing, whether it's religious. Julie could talk about church choir and people she knows there who are very involved. And we just talk to everybody we know about CF, about our grandson, Hayden, and we're very proud of him as everybody who has a CFer is. And we work very hard to spread that word. Our Christmas card has a lot of, last year had pictures of all the CF teams. Our daughter and her husband are in Atlanta, and they've set out to recruit friends and relatives across the country, and we had 6 teams last year and over 200 workers, and Julie featured all of those in a kind of a pictorial Christmas card this year. So we just kind of keep spreading the word, and it works with work colleagues, I'm sure, the same as it does with church colleagues or just casual people you know. So I don't know if that answered the question.
That's great. And I think that actually transitions well into how you can use social media to really engage your network, especially when they're all over all these different groups. And so I'd love to hear a story from someone about how they use social media.
I'm not sure I'm the right person to talk about social media. I do use social media, but I find that it's a two-edged sword. I actually reopened my accounts just for this conference. But I ducked out of social media about 4 months ago because there's a lot of trash on there, okay? So as a user of social media, I find myself blocking people that are annoying, and so my goal as someone who wants to spread this message and be an evangelist for the CF Foundation, I need to engage in some diplomacy online. It's a very powerful tool because of its reach, and I believe that if it's used correctly, it can be very effective. And so we decided that there are a couple of components to that. The first component, my son Simon is 15, and so part of my goal in life is to get people to love Simon. I want all my friends to be invested in him personally. It's getting harder and harder because as a teenager, he does not let me take his picture anymore. So I try to sneak pictures. But people know who Simon is, and they know that he's undergoing this struggle. And if we can educate people online in a subtle way about the struggles that go into having cystic fibrosis, then people will naturally find themselves invested in his life. The second component, which we occasionally get the opportunity to do through when events come up and we start advertising events like Great Strides or the Cycle for Life, we have an opportunity to say, hey, here is this, again, to use Dr. Campbell's words, the best story in medicine. And it really is an amazing story. And so here we have an opportunity to sell people on this story and to let them be a part of it. And so if we can find a way to succinctly explain that and not to spam them too much on social media to the point where they turn you off, again, it's a trick to pull this off. But I think that, so now you've sold your loved one with CF and you've sold the CF Foundation. Then obviously at the end of that, there's an ask. And I have found that sometimes people that are from very unexpected places can be very, very generous. They're looking for worthy causes to give to, and they will, in my experience. So hopefully you'll find similar successes we've had, and I'd be interested if anybody else has any good ideas about social media and effective ways to use it. I'd like to know, but it's definitely a key part of this whole thing.
Thank you. And again, with social media, a great thing, especially with Annual Fund, is you can make your own page. You can rename your page, so you can type your link in, and you can use Facebook and Twitter to send it out if that's a way to do it. And we're going to share all of it, even the groups we didn't get to. We're going to post it so that everybody can get ideas from everybody else. And we kind of went around while you were doing breakouts to talk to everyone at home. And so I just wanted to thank everyone for coming and spending time with us today. I'm going to hand the microphone over to Gary McKinney, who is a fellow Individual Giving Committee member, to help us wrap things up today.
Thanks, Aaron. First of all, thank you to the committee, the presenters. Great job. Thank you for your time and all the work you did in preparing for today as well. So thank you. My name is Gary McElhenney. I'm a CF dad and a quasi-CF grandfather. And so let me just give you that quick story here. I know we're pressed for time, but I had a grandson born last year, and he was born with 2 rare CF genes. He's passed both his sweat test and has been cleared by Johns Hopkins as not having CF. Because one of his genes was defective. Amazing. So my CF son, and this was with my other son's child. So I have 2 sons, Patrick and Danny. My son Danny is 27 years old, and since this last meeting in Dallas last year where I filled out this card, which everyone here needs to fill out before you leave, please take a moment to fill out the card. Since our last meeting in Dallas, Danny's gotten married, and I have another thing to worry about. He's now a police officer. So I get to worry about his CF and him being a cop. But, I hope you enjoyed the session today. I hope you learned something you can take back to your chapter. I know the committee works really hard. I've learned a lot in my year or so on the committee. And, please consider, again, fill out the forms, and please consider joining us tomorrow for our presentation entitled Unlock Your Potential. Thank you very much.
So everyone has the sheet on their table. It's perforated. So fill out the how can we reach you and leave that on your table, please. And then take home the I can and I will and fill it out with your thoughts. And there's a magnet on the back so that you can hang it on your fridge and never forget.